Thank you very much for the opportunity. This is exciting. It's midnight here in Jakarta. It's a pleasure to have you live, to interact with you. The school is actually, the university is one of the largest private university in Indonesia. We have quite a number of programs internationally recognized. And we are actually having a campus, more like an American style campus. I mean, really for, quite big in the outskirts of Jakarta. We have around 22,000 students in
wow.
the campus. Yes. And yeah, we offer also a lot of programs from engineering to tourism to computer science to business school as usual. We do have around 13 schools right now in the university, and with around 39 study programs. So, and
fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And in the business school, we are very happy when Anthony actually sharing with me that he met you in Seattle and then saying that Mr. Schultz is interested actually to address the UPH student. And I said, wow, that's wonderful. So we actually deliberately went through our case studies, and we found that almost 20 cases written about Starbucks in the Harvard business case, and including also interview that you did with Eddie Ignatius from the Harvard Business Review many years ago, when you just came back. That's wonderful. Yes. That gives us a lot of glimpse about, what's going on in Starbucks from your point of view, but also we got almost complete perspective also that the challenges of the World brand, and yes. Anthony kept talking about longevity of the brand, which I believe is very important. And what is very important to us is also about the leadership that you took and the decisions and the courage. So those are things that actually why this is very interesting to explore and to meet you in person and asking the same questions. A lot of things that you did actually in that 2008 when you returned, most like 15 years ago, was actually not very popular by that time, but you committed to do that. And one of the aspects that I keep talking with Anthony is that how you treat actually your partners and employees are very important, and it's very consistent, when everybody's still talking about minimum wage or something like that, but you go beyond that and, it's part of what you believe that it should be done. And that is 15 years ago. It's not just recently that many companies start adopting that, which is for us, is quite different, and we love to use the case of Starbucks actually for our oral exam in the strategic management class. There's a very nice cases, 30 pages, with a lot of graphs, but what is really important is the combination of strategy and leadership. And that is why it's extraordinary.
I understand. Okay, thank you.
So Howard, we have about an hour of your time, is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, well, you do it. And Anthony, the problem has been removed, so we can begin.
All right.
All right. So you can see my face.
Yes.
Great. So we're okay for about an hour of your time, right, Howard? I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes.
And again, we are recording this so that we can share it to the students of the university at a later time. So hopefully you're agreeable to recording it. And I would also like to thank, VP Sharma for supporting this too. I told him about this and he's very excited that you're willing to do this. In fact, you volunteered. I didn't have to twist your arm or anything. So thank you very much for that.
I'm happy to do it. Happy to do it.
So as Dr. Ugood said, we want to really ask you some questions, not like the media. We're not trying to catch you out with any sensational headlines. So that
I appreciate that.
You've had a lot of that lately. So this is more how we can teach the next generation of leaders some of the skills that you've used to survive these years. And, these years are very interesting. Just for the sake of, the recorded version, we have to update people that, Starbucks has been going for 51 years, right? It was 71 that I think Pike Place started. You joined when you were just 29, right, in 1982. giving away your age now. And then to where we are now, it's 2022, you're in 80 countries, Starbucks in 80 countries, 35,000 stores. And I noted that China has almost 6,000 now, with your sales around $31 billion, with about 350,000 partners. So lots of very big numbers in a very short time. So you've achieved so many things in that time. So I guess what we wanted to know first is looking at the corporate culture. So how has your culture helped, the company survived over these years? And I guess this is the first question to get us going, that in 2003, you once said, we want to get big, but stay small. And I think you've used that several times. So perhaps you can share with us, how has Starbucks managed to keep the intimacy of a small company when it's grown to such size it is today? If we could have your thoughts on that.
Great. Well, Anthony, thank you for the opportunity, and thanks to VP Sharma. And also, Anthony, I want to acknowledge the leadership and the servant leadership that you have provided Starbucks all these years. So thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.
The question you asked, I think, is a really important one, and certainly emblematic of the success we've had and how we view the future of the company. Early on, in 1987, when we had literally 11 stores and about 100 people working for the company, we laid out our vision for building a great and enduring company. Now, I must say that the statistics that you just rattled off, it's humbling to read all that. And I would tell you, I'd be the first one to say in 1987, if someone said to me, in 2022, you're going to have 35,000 stores in 82 countries and 30 billion revenue in sales, I would have said, you are crazy, absolutely crazy, no way. So how did we do it? We didn't do it because of Howard Schultz. I am no messiah. We did it because we created a different kind of company. And most importantly, we created a currency of trust with our people and a sense of belonging in America, in Indonesia, all over the world, an attachment, emotional attachment to the equity of the brand and the values and guiding principles of the company. Now, what is the values and guiding principles? Well, first off, the word culture is used by thousands of corporate executives and companies. The culture, when you reduce it to the lowest common denominator, is us. We are the culture. The behavior of the company and 350,000 people is the culture of Starbucks. And that culture has a memory, a set of values, not unlike a young child, that is imprinted with self-esteem, values, understanding of right versus wrong, and it evolves. Now, in 1987, when we began the company, we publicly said, we are going to attempt to build a different kind of company, a company that would achieve the fragile balance between profit and benevolence and conscience to do the right thing for its people. And so when you have a lens, which is the lens you use for your decisions, and that lens is clearly stated that we don't want to be profit driven. We want to be driven by exceeding the expectations of our people and our customers. And as a result of that, we believe we are going to financially perform. And it sounds kind of trite, but I've never been in a meeting in the history of Starbucks where the core purpose of the meeting was, how do we make more money? How do we maximize margin? Never. Of course, profitability is in this conversation, but it's not the core purpose of the company. So the short answer to your question of how to build a great enduring company in which the culture and values are at its center is what you must define your core purpose and reason for being. And our core purpose and reason for being is not solely based on profit. It's based on a set of values and guiding principles. And those values have created the equity of the brand, the experience in our stores, and perhaps the most encouraging thing about the values of Starbucks is, as an American company, what we've learned, which we did not know, is that these feelings of embracing value and a set of principles and this feeling of humanity as versus maximizing profit has been transferable all over the world because it's not an American virtue. What we have achieved and why it's been embraced is because the humanity of what we espouse and try to be every day, and we do make mistakes and fall short, but to try and elevate humanity as a core principle is a universal characteristic and virtue that has been embraced everywhere from China to Malaysia to Europe to Latin and Central America. So Starbucks is emblematic of a universal feeling that we all are longing for emotional attachment. We're all longing for an organization or a company that we can trust and an organization that we can feel a part of and a sense of belonging. And we're all longing to be part of something larger than ourselves. And if you can achieve that without compromising your values, then I think you can build a great enduring company or organization. And we're not smarter than anyone, trust me. We just have an understanding of who we want to be and how we want to act. And that has resulted in our ability to grow and expand the company to a level that I never dreamed of.
And when it's very interesting you mentioned internationally there, because I asked Belinda the same question, Belinda Wong, and she gave me the exact answer you gave. So it's nice that, as you said, this transcends the culture. Do you think that going into China is a very big move, and you were taking, which was in essence an American brand, to China? How did you manage to navigate that culture, which is very different to, although there are universal things that are the same, China is very unique. Were there some things that you learned about adapting the culture when you went to China?
Yeah. Well, I have to, I got to admit something that's not easy to say, but we lost money and we were unsuccessful in China for 9 consecutive years. And I was responsible for the entry of China and the growth of China. And I was making one mistake after another. The biggest mistake we made was imparting the Seattle management team and the Seattle philosophy of Starbucks and transferring it to the China team. And to put it kind of in more blunt terms, we weren't respecting Chinese consumer habits as much as we should have in the early stages. We were trying to actually change their behavior. So for 9 years, we lost money, and many people said Starbucks in China would not succeed. You mentioned Belinda. Belinda took over China, and the one request she had, which was different than any other market, is, I want to decentralize China. This is her saying to me, I'll take the job. I will lead the China transformation, but I don't want it attached to Seattle. Give me all of the instruments and tools and the organizational controls to restore trust and rebuild the business in China. And so once we left our ego at the door and said, we don't know what we're talking about, let's give it to her, she constructed a management team, a leadership team, an understanding at the local level of consumer behavior, and things started to change. However, Starbucks began doing something as an American company that surprised the local government and local Chinese leaders, because we were trying to recreate some of the benefit programs that were hallmarks of Starbucks success in the US, like free college tuition, healthcare, equity in the form of stock options. So when our Chinese partners, our people in a meeting said, when I asked them, what's your dream for your future? And every one of them said, my dream for the future is to preserve my parents or my grandparents' health and safety and financial security. That's not something that an American child would normally say, certainly not in mass. And so the idea that Linda came up with as a result of talking to our people was, one of the great benefits of Starbucks US is comprehensive health insurance for all our people 25 years before President Obama's Affordable Care Act.
Exactly.
And so we created something never existed in China. And that was, we created health insurance from the company for the parents and grandparents of our Chinese partners. Now, some members of the Chinese government, we had to get approval for this. Why would you do this? It's, it's going to cost a lot of money. And when we sat down with them, we explained to them, we're doing it because it's the right thing to do. We're doing it because this is the benevolence of the company, and this is how we've grown Starbucks. And so we started, even in China, a level of authorship and leadership about what we believe in terms of building value and respect for our people in unique and unusual ways that are inconsistent with most companies. And what you have to ask yourself in these kinds of decisions is, if you're making an investment for your people and you increase and enhance trust and you increase retention, the question rhetorically is, are you going to increase performance? And we have demonstrated over 50 years that every single investment we've made in our people has been a great return for the health, the welfare, and the financial return for our company. And it's not a like for like in terms of time. You got to be willing to make the investment, and you got to be patient that you're going to get the return. Unfortunately, for a public company like Starbucks and even many other companies, there's so much pressure on the bottom line. And sometimes you have to be willing to make an investment in the future of the company. And there's no better investment that we ever made in China or any other market in the world than an investment in our people.
And then that needed a lot. It was a risk, and you had to give a lot of trust in Belinda and her team.
Yes.
To do that, which was the essence of what you're saying. It's giving of trust. So you bring up another subject around culture that is very interesting. We're in a new generation now. I don't know if it's generation X, Y, or Z, but I can see it in our workplace that the people who join us in the workforce these days to become a barista at the beginning have a very different mindset about what they expect and what they expect from a company. And sometimes, it's quite difficult. Their way of thinking is very short term. They're not so loyal as the employees used to be. So do you feel that you need to move with the times as well, that you need to adjust the way that Starbucks have done things to be more of a new generation when it comes to how you run the company in terms of that organization? Or is what you said true over time infinitely? How do you adjust given the challenges that we face with this new generation?
This is a question that we are dealing with very often at Starbucks today, not only in the US, but other markets. So I'm not surprised by the question. We are a company that is so dependent on our people and human behavior. You mentioned we'll do $30 billion in revenue this year, but the average sale is $5, $6. And so 100 million people coming into our stores are dependent on how our people feel about the customer experience and whether or not they trust the company's intentions. There's no doubt that this generation, because of things that they've lived through 9/11, they've lived through the 2008 financial crisis, and now they've lived through COVID. And as young people, they don't have the same level of economic mobility that perhaps their parents or their grandparents have had. And certainly in America, and it's sad for me to say this, but the promise of America and the American dream perhaps is not as available as it once was, especially to young people. So the short answer is we have to adjust to understand the needs of this generation, Gen Z or otherwise, what their needs are and requirements of the company. The other thing I'd say is that the benefits that we've offered in all of these years have been groundbreaking. Never before has a company done the things we've done. Free college tuition for any employee is an extraordinary benefit, but it turns out it may not be as relevant for this generation as it was in years past. So we are going to, as a result of addressing this issue and your question, we are going to redesign what the benefits package should be going forward to address the needs of our people. And we're going to make sure that we're putting the partner, our people, at the center of every decision we make from this point forward, not at the expense of the customer, but alongside the customer. And we have to recognize that attrition, cynicism, fracturing of trust, these are things we have to address that are societal problems that have nothing to do with coming to work at Starbucks, but they're lingering. And we can't ignore it. And Starbucks is not immune to a high level of attrition or young people realizing this is not where they want to be. We've also learned in recent months that the scheduling issue is key, much more important than ever before to these young people, that many of them have a second job driving for Uber or Lyft or working at Amazon because they want flexibility in their schedule and they still have to earn money. And so all these things have to be kind of reassessed for us to meet our people, not only meet the customers where they are, but meet our people where they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think that's a very strong statement that needs to filter through the organization, you know, yours and mine. Yeah. And these are very interesting times.
Let me say one more thing about that question. The discipline of HR in an organization, there's a few things about this that I think are important for your students, is more often than not, in a startup company or a young successful company, the HR discipline and function is one of the last leadership positions to be filled. That's a big mistake that most people make because they hire the marketing person, they hire the engineer, they hire the head of ops, and HR is kind of left, oh, we'll get to that. No, HR must have the same level of attention and significance from day one and must have a seat at the big table, the big strategy table, alongside other disciplines with the head of the company. But here's the big change. HR is no longer a function or a discipline within HR. To your question about the change in the behavior of the young employee, the sense of entitlement, all of that, what it means to me is that everyone in the company must wear the hat of HR, because we all need to be a coach. We all need to recruit good people. We all need to make it personal so people are retained. And it's not the sole function of HR to ensure of all this. In the environment we're living in, the sense of attachment early on must be done by the coach, the manager, the team. It's not just an HR function.
Yeah, I think many surveys said about why people work, right? And money is often number 5 or 6. It's definitely not number 1. And that's something that you just said is a good reminder for us. I have one more question about organization before Dr. Ugut has a few on strategy. This one is an interesting one that we've talked about before, Howard, about the workforce and the partners being very emotional. And today it's a very sensitive, diverse world. But you've talked about the love culture. Do you think that's still a topic that is relevant, that how we manage with the heart, balance with the head?
Yeah.
Do you think we can still do that in this day and age?
100%. We not only still do it, but we need to do it even more. But let me introduce another word that's complementary to love. We need to demonstrate kindness. Kindness. Why? Everyone who comes to work every day, regardless of their job, their position, their gender, their sexual orientation, the color of their skin, we all come to work with the heaviness or the cloud of something that happened the day before or days before that adds to a level of anxiety and pressure. And we bring that to work. And so when you are building a company and managing people, you need to embrace the whole person, which means that you need to understand on a personal level who that person is. If you're the manager of people, you want to know, does that person have children? Is that person married? Is that person divorced? What's going on in that person's life? Because you have to demonstrate empathy, compassion, kindness, and love so people can perform and feel secure. And that's very different than the past, where it was performance driven. It was very, very straightforward. And that's not the case today. A post-COVID environment collectively has produced anxiety, depression, loneliness, anxiety. So it's critically important in a world where there's a mental health crisis in the world, and certainly in America, that we get underneath. In order to build a great enduring culture, we have to be sensitive, ultra sensitive to what's going on in our people's lives. And you want to get the most out of people, demonstrate empathy and compassion, and get to know them as people, not as somebody wearing a Starbucks uniform. Who are they first as a person?
And that means that leaders have to invest more time listening to people rather than talking, right? I always say people have 2 ears and 1 mouth. They should listen twice as much as they talk. So
yes,
that's a very
I
strong
agree with
message.
that.
Good. Okay, that's a very nice collection of messages for us to ponder about the culture. But getting to be a very large organization takes a lot of strategy. So I think we'd like to kind of pick your brains a little bit about that. Dr. Garcia, you may have some questions that you'd like to ask Howard.
Okay, thank you very much, Anthony. Howard, that's very interesting. And also that is quite different from the conversations that usually we listen from one of the Wall Street big companies. I remember that in some of the readings that I had about Starbucks, you basically defy the issue of the comms, and you have the comm sales that you have from the stores, which is very common among the retail establishment, but you choose actually to focus more on like what you just said. I mean, the well-being of your partners, your employees, you know, and you also look into balancing between the technology on how the great leap that actually Starbucks moved in terms of the technology, social media, and then you still also believe in the same value that about your people. So it's the balancing act between the technology and people is one of the most interesting aspects of Starbucks. So perhaps you can share with us a little bit on that.
Sure. Well, without stating the obvious, there's no company, small or large, anywhere in the world that can survive and build a sustainable company without being a tech company. I mean, technology, the investment in technology must be made ahead of the growth curve, and yet you always feel like you're never investing enough money, and the market is moving faster than your ability to catch up to it. The same is true in supply chain. So I would say supply chain, technology, and obviously human capital are the big three in terms of the foundation necessary. So if you're building 100-story skyscraper, metaphorically, that's the foundation. But you can't build the stories on the building unless the foundation is secure.
Yeah.
Recognizing that you have to continue to invest ahead of the curve. Supply chain, technology, people, process, systems, etc. However, the big difference today in terms of strategy, in my view, this is just my view, I could be wrong, but this is right for me, is that you hire a blue chip consulting firm and they come with their MBAs and all the intelligence they have, and they help you build a long-term strategy. Here's the thing. There's no long-term strategy anymore. It should not exist.
Yeah.
It's a waste of time. And it's a waste of time because the marketplace, consumer behavior, pattern recognition post-COVID is unpredictable. We're living today, right this moment, in a global inflationary time, and we're living today with the cause and effect, unfortunately, with Russia's unprovoked war on Ukraine, and we're living today, unfortunately, with a U.S.-China relation that is unfortunately not at the level that the world needs, and in my view, both countries respectively need, which affects trade, all sorts of things that we all know about. And so long-term strategy today is not where I would spend my time. In fact, I would reduce the strategic time no longer than a year. And almost every 6 months or so, I'd be taking a step back and see if I projected 6 months ago the strategic plan for the year, how much has changed. And invariably, in the environment we're living in, geopolitically, economically, and certainly a post-COVID environment where it's so difficult to predict market trends, consumer behavior, consumer spending, you can't, a 5-year, 3-year plan is irrelevant. It's a waste of time. And it might also be that as you plan for a year and you check in 6 months, that even in a 3-month period, you might realize that the expectations and the forecasting I had just for the next 6 months is no longer relevant. Who could have predicted the war in Ukraine, as an example? Who could predict 8-9% inflation today? $120 a gallon for $120 a barrel for gas, for oil. And so all these things are having significant pressure on the marketplace, the consumer. And the one thing we haven't talked about yet is the competitive landscape. Every company has small and large competitors, and we're not immune to the competitive pressures. The scrappiness of another small competitor, large, doesn't matter. We're not immune to our people being stolen, poached by another organization. So all these things have to be factored into a very tight strategic environment, strategic plan, where you're constantly objectively looking at what you forecasted in a short time frame, because relevancy is attached to today.
That is also the same experience that you had when you came back in 2008, because when you came back, it was just housing crisis, right? That's a huge crisis that you had. Is it some kind of a similarity there when you see the situations right now?
Yeah. Well, 2008, we were dealing with the cataclysmic financial crisis.
That's right.
2022, we're dealing with all the things I've just described and a very difficult, challenging post-COVID consumer.
That's right.
The difference between 2008 and today in Starbucks parlance is we have the benefit today, which we didn't have in 08, of incredible demand. So Starbucks business, in terms of our stores and customer demand, is very, very strong. And so the equity of the brand, the attachment has been incredible, but there's been a huge shift in our business. The physical environment of our stores was 90% of our business. Now 50% today is drive-through, and 25% is mobile order and pay. So people want much more convenience than ever before, and they're less interested either because of COVID safety issues or their own lifetime in terms of the third place physical environment. So the good news is we've got the demand. The challenge is we've got to rethink long-term relevancy for the consumer and most importantly, our people.
So that changed a lot on the delivery, the way it is. But you know, when we were able to get out from our house after the long pandemic, it's nice to get that feeling again, you know, come back to the coffee shop and, you know, start looking around, which is what we missed for the last 2.5 years. So yeah, but I agree, it's a very dynamic situations, dynamic, you know, that we don't know that how this will be played out, because in this part of the world, we were told that there is another, perhaps some kind of new wave coming in, you know, in this COVID. So yeah, we kind of really putting a lot of this kind of effort to figure it out. But now perhaps the best way is like what you said, planning is basically is a very short horizon, and we play every day with all these dynamic situations. So yeah, I agree 100% about that. But that will not change the way that you do the strategy and still focusing a lot on the partners, employees. And, you know, when I listen to the conversations between you and Anthony about, you know, the culture, the love, the kindness, the empathy, it's kind of really like, you know, we are in like the personal coaching sessions, you know, it's not really talking to the CEO of the Wall Street. And we kind of really thinking that how this actually emphasizing on the people is actually changing the organizations. And perhaps that is one of the reason why you have this resilience kind of, you know, organizations, despite of the crisis that keep coming and going, different type of crisis, but the company, I think, can still be very clear into the directions. And when you said that, you know, HR should be a function of every manager, isn't it that something that most of the HR expert actually wants to see in the organizations, which is usually is very difficult, you know, for a big organization to think about. One of the job of the manager is really to work with their people, coaching their people for the performance and mentoring them or understanding them to begin with, like what you said, as a person, not as an employee, you know. So how do you put this together, all these issues of people carrying and everything to the hard-nosed strategy?
Right.
Of course, at the end of the day, when you talk to, you know, all these analysts, they will want to see you saying growth. You know, the growth is like this, you know.
Right.
So how do you, this kind of narrative is completely different from the usual. So how do you make it that people buy into that? Yeah.
Well, I think this has always been a question that I've been asked over many years. And I think, you know, one thing I haven't mentioned, which is I take it for granted that is implicit in what I'm trying to say, is we must financially perform. And so financial performance is our fiduciary obligation, our responsibility to our shareholders. But there should be no misunderstanding that I am with 100% conviction attaching financial performance with the elevation of servant leadership and through the lens of compassion and love and kindness for our people, and understanding that in the world we're living in today, that I don't think any company can survive and build an enduring organization and position in the marketplace in which their people are treated less than.
Mm.
The fact is, you need to treat your people more than.
Mm.
And but the price of admission to building a great culture that's values based is you have to be financially driven,
Mm.
and you have to perform at a high level. However, there's a big difference between being financially driven as the sole reason for being.
Mm.
I mean, even Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley or JP Morgan,
Mm.
any of the great financial companies of our time
Yeah.
are reliant on people.
That's right.
And,
Yeah.
and they're in the money business. That's their business. They're in the money business. But I have a good friend who's the CEO of Goldman Sachs, David Solomon, great guy. He's transformed the culture of Goldman Sachs. And I think he's done that. Not that he's told me this, but I watch it and I assume, because he too realizes that the future of work and the future of building a great organization is through the lens of your people. And financial performance is linked directly to that.
Mm.
So when I say we all need to be in the HR business, let me break that down so I'm not misunderstood. You can't build a great company by dismissing the need for human capital, human performance, and what it means to build a culture of trust and confidence among your people so that they believe in the purpose and mission of the company.
Yeah.
Conversely,
Mhm.
if you have a company that has a great strategy
Yeah.
that is not invested in building a great culture, that is not invested with creating economic mobility and a pathway for opportunity for your people,
Mhm.
those companies, unless they have a technology that no one else in the world has, and they have no competitors in the world, most of those companies are not going to survive.
Yeah.
Because the churn is going to cause them so many problems. So financial performance, an elevated, trusted culture,
Mhm.
everyone understanding that being in the HR business means we have to be a coach.
Yeah.
We have to know at a personal level who our people are. We have to lead with a level of servant leadership that's based on financial performance, yes,
Mhm.
compassion, empathy, kindness, and love, but holding people accountable. I don't want to be misunderstood.
Yeah.
Love, compassion, kindness, all those things are directly linked to accountability.
Yeah.
Because success is not an entitlement.
Mm.
It has to be earned.
Yeah.
But the circle of all of this is the linkage and the attachment that this is an amalgamation, an alchemy
Yeah.
of virtues and mission and purpose, of understanding what it takes to build a great enduring company. And everyone who's a manager and a leader has to be threaded into all of that.
Yeah.
So we all are singing from the same page about the core purpose and reason for being, which is not, we're not here primarily to make money. That is a manifestation
Mhm.
of our behavior, our actions, that ultimately leads to great financial performance.
Can I be controversial, Howard?
Yeah.
Sure.
So it has to come from the top. All those things you were saying have to be driven by the leader. This is something that you cannot say the company has to do that. It has to come from the top, has to come from leadership. And in today's world, you know, there are people who we put in place to run companies, and they are given a very hard time because they're expected to perform in 2 years. You know, if they don't perform, they're probably not going to be there for 3 years. So the pressure on them is very great. And the things that we're talking about, love and trust and support and that, are longer term investments that you give all of that now and you'll see it back over a period of time. But these leaders that come in and have to execute the plans don't have a lot of time on their hands. How do you think we navigate that pressure on people coming in to balance all of these things? Because it's a very big demand that you don't want turnover in leadership, but you also want people who perform. Are these things going through your mind right now?
I think what you bring up is absolutely true. And I think, unfortunately, there is a very short-term mentality on behalf of Wall Street on most public companies, because financial performance is directly linked to longevity of a company's valuation and the performance of the CEO. I agree with that. I think it comes back to the board of directors' support of the CEO's, giving the CEO the time, the authority, and being patient, that we're trying to build something that will endure. I think Wall Street does have a short memory, but Wall Street also wants to reward long-term performance. So building trust with your people and the organization, the same thing has to occur with the CEO building trust with its constituencies outside of the business, which in this case is the shareholders. How do you do that? I think you have to describe the narrative of what you're trying to do and live up to it. But you are right. There is a short-term mentality that does put pressure on leaders to perform. I guess what I'm saying is the two are not mutually exclusive. And most importantly, over the long term, they have to be attached to one another. But you are correct. There is a short-term mentality that puts a lot of pressure on leaders, especially those that are coming from the outside and trying to either turn around or advance a public company. I have to agree with that.
Yeah, I was talking to Maxime Holder, as I told you, from Paul Bakery. He recalls conversations you were having very fondly. His challenge is, it's a family company. How do the family step out? And they have succession planning in their company. They don't have an answer for that too, because they know that finding somebody who shares the values and is also profit driven is a very hard challenge.
Very hard.
I don't know. I guess you're going through that right now.
Yeah. Yes, I am.
All right. Dr. Garcia, anything else you would like to pose to Howard?
Questions, perhaps. How do you describe your leadership style, Howard?
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
How do you describe your leadership style?
Oh, God. I'm thinking how I could describe that.
How would John Culver describe you?
Yeah. I think sometimes to a fault, I take everything at Starbucks very personally.
Okay.
I love the company so much, and I have such so much affection for our people and love for them and responsibility to their families that it's almost impossible not to take it personally. But as a leader, when you take things personally, you tend to be very driven in a good way about the outcome. Now, I can't expect everyone at Starbucks to take it as personally as me, but there are two types of generals. I'm going to try and answer your question in a different way. There's a Pentagon general and there's a field general.
Yeah.
Both are necessary. I'm more comfortable personally being on the field being in the mud,
Yeah.
being in it, really in it. And I think if you're going to build something great, you got to be in it with your people. You got to be alongside them. You got to be leading from the front. I think people who have worked with me and alongside me know how much I care about the outcome, but perhaps equally or more important, they know how much I care about the process of how we're going to get there. I also, I'm a hard grader. Probably got that from my mother. I'm performance, as I said earlier, and success is hard to do, hard to create. And we're not immune and we're not entitled. And so we have to earn it every day. And so there's a level of tenacity and intensity required at this level. And but I never want to walk away from the empathy and compassion necessary to be the kind of servant leader that creates fellowship.
That's a
Thank you
very
very
nice
much.
summary.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Anthony, I hope this serves your students well.
I think so. Just one more question, if you have the last few minutes.
Okay.
So it's also a warm and fuzzy subject about how Starbucks approaches community involvement. Now, usually during a crisis, it's the first thing to get cut. Expenditure for supporting the community and things that go on outside of business. And Starbucks has always been kind of a leader, I think, in community. What are your thoughts on that? A lot of companies do this community just for greenwashing. They just want to look good. They do it because they have to. What's your take on that? And how do you, keep that vision alive when things get tough?
Well, Anthony, I think as you know me and the company, our commitment, our conviction to serving our community is so strong and at 100% level. Just last week, I was in Washington, D.C., 5 miles from the White House in a community called Anacostia, a African-American community that unfortunately isn't the safest place in America. And what do we have in that community? We have a Starbucks community store managed by a fantastic group of people and a manager, his name is Ty Shoemate, who lives in the community. I had a great day that day, but the highlight of my day, without question, was going to that store, sitting down with partners and listening to Ty talk about the meaning of Starbucks in that community and what it means for everybody, how proud he was. If we're building a great company, we got to give our people a reason to go home at night and speak to their parents, their wife, their husband, their partner, and say, you know what Starbucks did today? You know how proud I am of the company? And so we have to make a deposit all the time in the reservoir of our values. And so exceeding the expectations of our people and the communities we serve is an absolute. Full stop.
Well, that's great. And you can come to our community store. We have in a similar type of part of Jakarta. It's called Tanah Abang. Not many people wanted to go there. And when I said I want to open a Starbucks, they thought I was completely crazy. But we've done it and we've proved that we can do it and we can be part of that community. So I think that same feeling can transmit over cultures. And like I said, that could be on your stuff.
Anthony, I just want to say, let me say to the Dean, I don't know how well you know Anthony, but I want to say, of all the people who have been part of Starbucks over these 50 years, Anthony rises to the top as a servant leader. And when he was in my office just a few weeks ago and he mentioned this opportunity, I wanted to, in a sense, pay back and do something for him because he's done so many great things for Starbucks. So it's my pleasure.
Thank you very much, Howard.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to wrap up, Dr. Garcia? I think we've taken a good amount of Howard's time.
Yes, that's right. And I think, we cover quite a lot of issues here and it's very clear the message is still very much consistent. But this is definitely better than just reading the Harvard business case about Howard Schultz and Starbucks. This is more likely we got a lot of the, figment of, perspective, different perspective that usually is hard to capture in the Harvard.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
My pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity. And I told Anthony, I hope to get back to Jakarta at some time in the next 6 to 12 months and maybe visit the school.
Lovely.
Who knows?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Lovely.
Bye-bye.
Lovely to have you in
Thank you,
campus. Okay.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Anthony.
Thank you,
Take care.
Howard.
The sunshine has arrived
you.
to England as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.